Yeah, that's fucking sweet.
I want to keep smaller than Jar Jar. I want to be a Jar Jar. Hated by the world.
He was a good character.
Universally hated. That's me. Jar Jar Binks.
So, yeah, because it was like a whole other like set of
that or I'm moody Anakin, like angsty Anakin. I'm angsty Anakin. I hate Sam.
Of course, he gets everywhere. Whatever he says.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. We'll follow the same. Mic is still not working, so we'll follow the same hand signals. All right, everybody good?
Yeah.
Definition of good.
Better than
Well,
that.
right now they're fine.
Okay, yeah, good.
All right, so I'm gonna tell you straight up. Today's class is probably one of the most difficult classes you guys are going to do.
You say
All
this
right.
every week for the past
This is-
weeks. Every week, you come in here like
This is it.
like, man.
This is how you guys pay attention. Otherwise, nobody does.
Can we have one
All right.
week where you're like, this is gonna be pretty easy. You'll feel good at the end of the week. Like, none of that.
Well, because I say that, and everybody focuses and they get it, so that's good. All right. So this is what's going to happen at the end of the class. Either you're going to really appreciate this. It's a really good topic, and you will see how it helps with the coding part. It's more about refactoring, modularizing versus actually writing something new. I will always see a few new points, but mostly it is that, you know, if you look at the previous lecture, our server.js is becoming huge, right? You have connection, express connection, and then all the routes are over there, right? So we'll look at some of the techniques how to separate everything out. Okay? So either you will really appreciate it or you will be very confused at the end of class. There's like no middle ground, I'm telling you right now. Okay? I'm not good. Okay. All right. Then we have a lot of exercises to cover, but I still want to leave time. We have homework, next week's homework, and then checkpoints. So I'll try to finish this class by 9:05. I don't know. Let's see, depending on how people are getting this. Okay. But before we actually go on to the new topic, we'll start with our first warm-up activity, and this is called Quotes app. Okay. Nick has slacked out the exercise. All right. Now, all right. The exercise has a template. Everything is done above server.js. The only thing is we have to complete server.js. But time and again, I tell people to look at the code and and then solve it. People just jump directly to server.js and they start coding and everything is good. They don't see what's going on, how the code is divided. It's actually divided really nicely at this point. Okay, so download the exercise or pull it from GitHub, open this, and then before you just take a minute or two, just look at this and we'll start on this. Okay, we'll do this together. All right, so either you're downloading it or opening in GitLab, up to you guys. So Nick has slacked out the exercise. Download it, set it up. What is it?
What is the number of this?
It's 08.
08.
Oh, sorry, it's 11. Quotes app.
And it's still handlebars, or we're doing?
It's still a little bit of everything. That's a good. Yeah,
No, I'm
11.
asking if it's
Yes,
14,
handlebars.
14.
14. Yeah, we're still. This is the last day of week 14. Okay. I'll just give a minute for everybody to download, open it up, and then we'll walk through this one.
What is it? The quotes?
Quotes app, number 11.
Oh yeah, that's the one. I mean, I got some of them working. I couldn't get like the individual ID post for them.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
So I was like, hey, I wanted some new stuff.
Okay, since you already started, how about not the solution? I want you to walk us through from the top, like what's going on. I don't care about server.js at all. I want to, what is this public folder? What is inside the public folder? Just a high level. Don't even open a file. Just looking at the directory structure, we are trying to determine what's going on.
So
Okay.
the public folder is just like the public facing, like the HTML that the browser is see. So
Okay, good point. So everybody, remember this: the browser is going to see. Okay.
and then
So what's inside my public folder?
you have your assets, you have your CSS file,
Okay.
and then you have your JavaScript. Well, you have
I have my JavaScript file. Excellent. So, and what kind of a JavaScript file like? If I open this up, what would you see?
function.
Functions, but what library is it using?
Oh, jQuery.
jQuery. Okay, excellent. Let's come back. All right, everybody clear? So public is a folder. The code has been divided. There's a JavaScript file and quotes.js. Okay, and it has a lot of jQuery methods inside it. Okay. You see this on the top, the function. Let me change this to document.ready. I mean, it seems like it's a shortcut, but we'll change it to what we are used to. Document.ready. Okay, and then it expects a function. Oh, still an extra one. This is what it is basically. Okay, so same as document.ready. All right, so our JS file has our jQuery code. Okay, remember from the Saturday class we were using this jQuery code, but this was embedded in our HTML, in our handlebars file. So this has been separated out. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, Geoffrey, keep going. Views.
And then the views, it looks like those are the different handlebar views. You have your main,
Excellent.
and then
So views is all handlebars, nothing else. Okay, same folder structure should be views, layouts should be a main.handlebar inside it, and then I have my other handlebars that are going to be embedded inside that view. Okay, excellent. All right. Now let's go ahead and open up our server.js. All right. All right, let's see. Laura, number 10, line number 10. Why do I have that over there? Express.static public. What do you think is public? Where is the name public coming from? Look at the directory structure. Oops.
From the folder
From the folder.
public that we have in there.
Yep, that's true. Do you know what it is doing? Why do I need that? Okay. Anybody else? Yes. Jeff.
You can use the external style sheets, or external sheets, so was anything after public, you can use it. So it doesn't have to be inside of your HTML.
Yep. Laura, you got it. So any folder that you specify over here basically does not need routing. Okay. What do I mean by this? There are routes at the bottom, right? What does a route do? When you go to this page, you have to define that, oh, if it's a slash quotes slash something, this is my route. When I come to this point, go ahead and display this page, right? Anything that you put over here, it does not need a route. This is one of the other Express middleware functions. What it does is it takes care for routing for you already. And you place static files inside it, the files that are not going to change. Okay, for example, our JS file, this is not going to change. I mean, it already has the code over here. Okay, I'm not waiting for anything else to come. Our CSS is kind of static. Any other HTMLs you're going to put over here. Okay, these files do not require a route, and you are telling basically Express that, you know, whenever there's a call to any one of these files, you go ahead and take care of it. Okay, and where do you think is the call being made to get course.js or style.css? Excellent, it's in the main file. So let's go ahead and open up this is the main files. And when your main.handlebar loads, what's happened? When it comes over here, it's going to go ahead and your browser is going to go to localhost 8080 and try to find /assets/js/course.js. Okay. But since you have that static method over there, it's not going to come to your routes that you have defined over here. This is also a route, right? It has a slash something something. This is a route. But you are telling Express that anything that is inside this folder, go ahead and you take care of it and go inside my public folder. When a call is made, go ahead, find this and send it to the browser. Okay? That's what you put in your public folder. Again, do not put your these handlebar files. You can, don't put inside it. Again, what will happen? It will never come to these routes, right? You are telling Express, do not worry about the routes that I have created. You go ahead and handle anything that is over here. So your route is never going to get hit. This gets called even before your routes get handled. Okay, so usually our jQuery or whatever JS files that we add for the front end, that's where we put in our public folder. And then to make sure this is working, you absolutely need this line. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay? I know I told you guys to Google in previous classes if you want to do separate, and this is how you do it. Yes, Matt?
So if you send a route to it,
Yes.
it looks for it in anything it can find in public, and then if it doesn't find it, it moves on to your defined routes below.
Yeah, then it will go ahead and do it. Yeah. But it will, yes. Basically, that's what it does. Okay? All right. You can actually test this when you run this. You can type in localhost 8080 slash and then go into type in slash asset css style.css, and you will be able to access that file directly without any routes or course.js. Okay. All right. The other parts are we are setting up our handlebars, view engine, MySQL, making a connection, and then connecting to it. Okay. So let me go ahead and update this. All right. So now we are going to move on to our exercise. So basically what we have to do is we have to create, complete these routes. Okay. Before I proceed, let me go ahead and create these databases so that we can actually use them. Okay, this is my schema. Okay. Go ahead and create this schema, seeds, use, what is this called, quotes underscore db, quotes underscore db, okay, all right. So I'm done with my MySQL part. I should have data. The next thing I want is, before I proceed, let me go ahead and install all the packages. Since I have a package JSON file, you guys should have that, so I don't need to individually install. I just do npm install, and it looks for the package JSON and installs everything that is required. Okay. Updated my password. Updated this. All right, that should be it. So let me go ahead and won't do anything. I just want to see if there's any error. There is an error. Go back and see. Access denied. Oh, wrong password. Okay. All right. So server listening connected at ID 82. So this means my code is good. All right. Let's start with the first one, just the slash. Okay. Serve index.handlebars to the root route populated with all the code data. Okay. Randy, just give me a pseudocode, Randy. What do I have to do over here? You don't have to write the actual code.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
No, that's okay. So let's go ahead. So we are on line number 36. That's not why. That's not the reason. But I want to go to my root route. Okay, slash. When I type in slash, what should happen? Line number 36, 37, 38. You can read the comment on 35. And kind of, I'm trying to find out what do I have to do over here. Not the exact code. We'll come to the coding part. But what do I have to do?
So we have to create a route to the root.
Okay.
For that slash.
Okay. What should happen when I do slash? When I type in localhost 8080 slash.
It should give you the home page.
Excellent. Home page. Home page with what? Just the home page?
I don't know, whatever you put on it.
You're right. What am I putting on it? What's the app doing? It's in the comments. Line number 35.
Populate all code data.
Okay. We just created our database, code database. Okay. So I'm trying to populate. When I go to slash, I just want to get all the data that is in my database for quotes and just show it. Okay. So let's see. What query should I be using? Anybody? Select all. Well, select star. Okay. So connection dot query. Okay. The first is my query and then my callback function, and it has error and results. Okay. Query is select star from quotes. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and so if there is an error, okay, let's go ahead and return the 500 server error. Okay. So in our response, we're going to return HTTP 500 saying that something bad happened and we couldn't process this. Okay. And if there's no error, res.render, what do I have to pass in? The first parameter is the file, and what is this going to be? Index. Excellent. Index. And then what do I need to pass in? Let's look at the index file. I'm passing in quotes and I'm using each. So this means quotes is in. What is quotes? No, quotes is not a string. I'm looping through quotes. It's an array. It's an array. Right? I'm looping through quotes, so it has to be an array. It can't be any. I cannot loop through an object. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You have to wrap this inside an object. That's different. But within that object, you're still passing an array. All right. This thing always has to be an object, but within the object, what am I doing? I'm passing an array. I'm still passing an array. Okay. Yes, this has to be an object. That's fine. But within that object, I'm still passing. I'm passing an array. Okay. So when results is what?
Results is the array and
X.
quotes is just the name you give.
Right. Quotes is the name of the array that I'm giving this. And why am I saying quotes? Because seems like the template already is calling it quotes, so that's why we're using the same name. Right? But again, quotes is still an array. That's why you're looping through. You won't be able to loop through an object in this fashion. Okay. Is there anything else do I need to add, or this should be good? Okay, so go ahead and open your browsers, run this and see if this works. So localhost 8080 and then slash should give me all the data. Any idea why I'm not seeing anything? Excellent. It's my port. It's actually 3000. If you look at the bottom, it's saying listening at 3000. And there is my app showing up. Okay, all these things are already built into your index.handlebar and main.handlebar. But how do you know this is working? Because you are able to see these IDs and codes, and these are coming from your database. Okay. All right. Any questions on this one? Good. All right. Let's look at the second one, the ID. Aaron, how about you tell us? Just the pseudocode. What do I have to do for the ID?
So let's see. So we're looking for a single quote.
Okay. What does my give me an example for my route? How is it going to look like in my browser?
So it's going to be slash the ID number,
Localhost
3000 slash
an ID.
ID number. So
Okay.
5.
All right. Everybody get that? That's what I need to pass in from my browser. Okay. Now what do I have to do over here? It's going to be similar to this one.
Connect to that query.
Okay. Excellent.
And then you are going to want single quote.
Connection dot query. Let's finish this up. So this is where my query goes. My callback function with error and result. Okay. Please see, I'm calling it result because this should always give me just one row. Okay, remember the CRUD operations and the REST API? So that's why I'm just going to call this result. Okay, let's go ahead and copy this because this is going to remain the same. And then we'll come back and complete our query. All right, Aaron, so what query should be here?
So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Kyle, go ahead. Select star from quotes. Excellent. Where ID is equal to question mark. And how do I pass this in? This has to be an array. And where am I getting my ID from? How do I access it? Is it in my request or response? It's coming to me, so request. Request dot, and is it a body or params? Params, because it's in my URL. And I'm calling it dot ID. Okay. All right, that's how I use ID, and that's how I pass it in. So request.params will have my ID. I'm going to call this. If there's any error, send the status back if there's no error. Then I need to call which page? Single dash core.handlebars. Okay, so rest.render. Let's go ahead and call that page, which is single core.handlebars. I'm going to copy this so I don't typos. And then what do I need to pass in? Codes. So result and then 0. Why 0? Because even if it is 1, remember MySQL always gives you an array back. It doesn't matter. MySQL doesn't care. It's always going to give you an array back, whether you're calling it for 1 or many. But for sure, we know it's always going to be 1 because we're using the primary key, which is ID. You can't have 2 IDs, right? So when I give in an ID, it's always going to return me 1 row. Okay. But MySQL returns you an array, and that's why we're using the 0, because there's always going to be 1 row in that array. All right. So let's go ahead and run this. And how many IDs do I have? Let's try number 4. So I have to do a /4. Okay. And it gives me the ID with all the details. All right. /3 should give me a different code. There it is. All right. /2 a different code. All right. So that's my ID route. Good. All right. The next one, this is kind of a little bit tricky. So what do I do in my post route? Andrew, want to take a stab at it? What do I do in my post route?
So we're gonna make that post, you know, routing.
Right.
So we're gonna quote, so we're gonna capture what's in the lines.
So yeah. But what am I doing when I use Post. What is my intention when I do a post?
To update
Not update. To create a new one. That's the distinction. Put is for update, and that's why I stopped you right there. So post is you are updating something. And looking at the route, do you see the difference? My previous routes were /id or /, right? Versus /API. So this means these are APIs, right? These are JSON objects. All right. These are not your HTML routes. The first two were your HTML routes because we didn't have API in the name, right? So this tells me that this is going to be called somewhere within the code. I cannot access it directly. All right. So somewhere in the code, and this one looks like there's a form. When you click the submit button, it's going to behind the scenes is going to make a AJAX call, and it's going to go ahead and add this code in your database. Okay. All right. So Andrew, what code do I need over here?
So you're gonna need to capture the data from the form somewhere,
Okay.
and you're gonna need to make a query and insert that into the database.
Okay. So I'm going to write this part. Why don't you look at the HTML or the handlebars and tell me what am I exactly getting in the body, so that I can parse that.
So you're giving an author and a quote.
Author and code. Okay. And my query is going to be insert into quotes. All right. And then our column names. What are the column names? Can somebody tell me those two columns? Author and quotes with an S. Quote. Okay. Values. And then I'm passing in two values.
That's all you have to do to have both of those in there as the author and quote together.
Say that again. What do you mean?
The two parameters author and quote, because that was my issue. Like,
This thing?
yeah. Oh yeah, both of those, author and quote. Because I was kind of doing it, and
Why do I need both? Because I'm inserting both. That's why. If I was just inserting author, I don't need quote. Whatever you're trying to insert, it's the same insert query. Remember, insert into table, and these are the column names, and then the values, which correspond one to one.
so could you, if you did like, hey, if I just inserted the author
Yeah.
instead, you could do that.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
If now go back and check. Does it allow nulls? If it does, then yeah, you can skip quote and just do author. What would happen to quote? It will enter a null.
Okay.
Right? But if it doesn't allow null, you're going to get error when you do it without the quote.
So if it has the not null, then
Yes.
it won't allow you to just put some null
Right.
value in there.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, so since I have my placeholders, I need to pass in something, and this would be in my request. Okay, and this time it's in the body tag. And Andrew said the first is author, and then the second is quote. Okay, and Andrew, which file did you find this?
I saw it in the single quotes handler.
Single quotes handlebars.
I saw like there was some this author
No, actually, this is filling the data. Why? Because you're getting this data over here and you're filling this information over here. Okay, but what are we trying to do with it? We are trying to capture new information, something that you type it in. You see what I mean? In this one, we are capturing, we pass in the data and then it kind of fills with this.
Okay.
So that's not where we are. We are trying to capture this information. Which file? Anybody else? Public, and then
Index.
no JS file. It should be in your jQuery. Why? Because you have a form, and then you're trying to create something new, right? Then you should have a form and you should have a submit button. When I click this button, it should make an AJAX call, $.ajax, and where does $.ajax go? In my jQuery code. And where's my jQuery code? There's literally just one JS file, and which is this one. So it has to be somewhere over here. And that's where it is. The create form on submit, that's where you are getting your author and quote. I mean, somehow Andrew got the right parameters. They both are alternate code over here, just from the wrong place. But that's very good. You got it, Andrew?
Yeah, I get it now.
Okay.
I just saw
And-
form in the
Right.
single code handle where it's like but
So this is where I'm doing a post and I'm passing in my new code. Okay. Let's get back over here. Oh, I missed the error one. So let me copy this, and that should be. So if there's any error, do this. Otherwise, go ahead and do this insert. Oh no, that's not where this goes. This goes inside my connection. Okay. So otherwise, from your previous exercise on Saturday, what we were doing, we were just passing back the newly inserted ID. It's called ID results dot insert ID. Ellie, do you recognize this one? Result dot ID. What is this doing?
Yeah, that's, the ID of the ID,
Where am I getting insert ID? I don't have anything over here.
from the table.
From the table. So go before insert. What's before insert ID?
Result.
Result. Where is result?
That's from the,
You see where result is?
yeah.
Okay.
So you're taking in parameters that someone types in into the address bar, and
Right.
then you're,
Well, not in the address bar, in my form.
Oh,
Because this is a
yeah.
post request, I cannot put it in my address bar, right? I cannot do this.
Oh, yeah.
I have to have a form, and that's when I click the submit button. That's when it comes over here.
Yeah, so that someone puts into the form, and then if there's an error, it looks at error. If not, then it tells you the ID of,
Right. Now, where is that ID coming from? Is it coming from the form? Am I entering an ID over here?
it's just auto incremented in the database.
Right.
into-
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what it is. So what? But what?
That's what I said.
This is the result.
I just said the table. but I
All right.
wasn't-
The result has your. When this is successful, your result is going to have some properties, right? One of the properties is insert ID, and this is the ID which it generates when you insert a row successfully in your database. And this is an auto incremented because that's how we defined it. So next one could be 10, 11, 12. What we are doing is this is kind of like a success message. If your browser, if your client gets an ID, this means this was successful. And somehow you will write in your JavaScript saying, hey, if I see an ID, it's good. I have been able to successfully insert the row. But as an indication that this was successful, we send an ID back. And insert ID is a property of this of your MySQL Node.js third-party app, and it has a property insert ID and gives you that ID. Okay, it's coming from MySQL. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and test this out. So let's go back. Oh, there's this. What is it? Yeah, there's. Okay, so I can go ahead and add this code. And if my code is working and it shows up over here, why? I see that ID. So this is the new ID that is being generated, and it shows up on this screen. So this means my post is also working. Okay, any questions so far? Good. All right, let's do the delete. This one should be easy. George, you want to take a try? How do I do the delete?
To delete connection,
What is it?
the connection, so we use jQuery.
Connection dot query. jQuery.
And then if you select,
Yeah, let me complete this and then go ahead. Select what?
and you select start from, and then close, and then,
So I'm trying to delete. I cannot use select.
oh, okay.
I'm trying to delete. Delete. Okay. And then from and the table name quotes. Excellent. Where? Excellent. And then over here is going to be same array. And how do I get this ID? Right, I'm passing it through. That is an excellent observation. How am I passing it through? How am I passing it through? Like, how do I get it out? How do I capture it? There you go. It's kind of similar to your get one. You see this one? Look at the route. It says /id, so it's coming in my parameters. So I have to do request.params. And then what do I do? .id, because that's how it is named over here. Okay? So you are going to determine this by looking at your URL. Okay? Same thing, if there's any error, go ahead and give this error. Okay? And then from your, if you remember from your Saturday, one of the exercises had this. Remember the 404 code, right? Not found, HTTP 404. So if it was not able to delete, or if it was not able to find any rows dot, what was it, affected? Excellent. Affected rows is equal to 0. This means none of the, it was not able to delete anything. Then let's go ahead and return response dot status as 404, which means not found, and then end the connection here. Okay, if all of this was successful, this means everything is good. So let's go ahead, just return 200. 200 means success. Dot status 200 dot end, that this is the end of the message. I don't have anything else coming through. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. Let's go ahead and delete this, and I don't have ID 8 anymore. So this tells me it was successfully deleted. Okay. Same thing with the delete query, and then pass that to the ID, and it's going to go ahead and delete that from the database. All right, last one. Who wants to do the last one? Come on, I don't want to pick anyone. Anyone? Joffrey?
I already did it. It's not fair to the rest of the class.
All right, Ches, how about you? You got this. So now it's an update, right? So how does the update work, or the put works?
It's just the same thing, there would be two different, we type the database, we do two different, different ways to find,
Excellent.
ways to find the data.
Right. What are the two different ways?
Front and back end. Probably the primary identifier and the primary key.
Okay. So that's the ID, and this is a,
That's a column.
that's a param, right? Request.params. What's the other thing that's not shown over here, but that's going to come in? Similar to post. How do I pass the data in my post request? So now when I do a post, how do I capture the data, as Blair put it? It's no, again, params is only what you see on the URL. URL, I'm using params. Yes, I'm going to get the ID. How do I get the data? The remaining data. Body. Excellent. All right, everybody see that? So update has combination of both kind of post and get. On the URL, you're getting an ID, which you use param to get it. The other part will comes in the body. And what other part? Because I'm trying to update some data, right? I need that data also, other than ID. So I'm going to say update where ID is equal to this, and then set whatever the data, the new data that has been passed in. Okay, that's how update works. Right, so let's go ahead and complete connection dot query. Stub this out. Function error and error and result. Okay. Let's go ahead and copy this. If there's any error, give a 500. Okay. And then the update is update table name and then set where ID is equal to whatever is passed in. So update codes and then set. Then what's next? Author is equal to placeholder quote. Somebody look in the jQuery and verify these are the two things that I'm passing in, where ID is equal to placeholder again. Okay, and how do I get this? Same array. The first two are coming from body. The last one is coming from the param. All right. So request dot body dot author. I'm going to assume this is the one. Just confirm in your jQuery that this is what the your update method is passing. Author and then what was it? Quote. Okay. The last one is an ID which is in the param. So request dot params dot ID. Okay. So update is kind of similar to this one, so I'm just going to copy the error. Instead of affected rows, the method is changed rows. Okay, again, this is kind of optional part, but it's good to have all the error checking. So again, if you look at the previous exercises that we did on Saturday, the solutions kind of have these change rows. So this tells me if there's any row that was updated. Okay, and the chances are that this row was not updated is that this ID doesn't exist in the database. That would be that. So this means I was not able to find it. If everything is good, just return success. Okay, so what does this mean? You can go ahead and update this, come back, and this code has been updated. Okay, yes.
Okay, so, I can just remind me one more time, the request of body is the MySQL table?
Request.body is MySQL. No, it has nothing to do with MySQL. So request.body, when you do a post request, okay,
Yeah,
you need to pass in data,
so it's
JSON
the new-
data.
It's
Right.
the new, it's the new data.
It's a new data,
Okay.
right? So you have to pass in a
Yeah.
JSON, and you cannot put a JSON in your URL, so it has to go in your body tag. Okay, what goes in the URL will be called params that you can see on the screen, right? So post only body tag. What does get do? get uses params because it's in the URL, right? Delete also params because you are passing an ID. Put is both. Put passes a param as an ID, and then it has to pass in some updated data. It's not creating a new one, but you see this set thing. So I'm setting the new data. So I need to pass something adjacent, and that goes in my body. So put has both. Okay? Everybody clear on get, post, put, and delete? Little clear? No, it should be absolutely clear.
Well, I honestly wasn't listening, but you said a lot of good stuff.
Now I'm not going to answer.
No, you said it, and it was like get the parameters, the URL. Like that was really good. So put parameters. I was typing and listening.
Quote of the day.
Okay. Any questions? This is I'm telling you post, get, put, post, get, put, and delete. Yeah, these you'll be working with these things a lot. So please make sure you clearly understand what each one is doing and how you are doing it. All right. Remember the CRUD operations, the API call that I listed all over here. Hopefully everybody made a note of it, because you'll be following the same strategy, and from here on we are just writing APIs. Okay? All right, everybody good? Any questions before I close this and move on to the next one? Nope? All right, let's do the next one. So next one is, it's not ORM, it's ORM.
It looks like one.
All right. ORM. So ORM stands for Object Relational Mappers. All right. A lot of people kind of make it complicated, but I will tell you it's just a library. Okay, ORM is basically a library where you are, and what do I mean when I say a library? jQuery is a library, right? So what does this mean? You have jQuery, and then behind the scene it has a lot of JavaScript things. And what are these things? These are basically functions. Okay, so basically jQuery has created a bunch of JavaScript functions that you can call to process some information. All right, ORM is exactly the same thing. In ORM, you are creating a library, and behind ORM is a bunch of functions which do what? Which basically call your SQL queries. All those queries that we wrote, select star from this, all right? You write functions and you hide all those queries inside this function, and within from ORM, you just call these functions. Okay, what does that mean? So I'm going to have a function called select. That is it. All right. From my calling code, from my server.js, what am I going to do? I'm just going to call. This is going to become my ORM. It's a library, and I've exposed a method which is called select. All right. Now I'm doing something in my select. I don't know. We'll look at it. We have to write that method. But from this perspective, from my server.js, what do? I just call this method and I say select. And it selects all the rows and give me data back. Okay? I write another method where I say select where. This method is that you pass in, it's a select query, but you pass in where something is equal to something. ID is equal to something, author is equal to something, code, it doesn't matter. All right? So from my server.js, if I want to call a where clause, right, a where query, what do? Which method do I call? I just say select where. Call this method. It gives me data back.
So are those like, because looking at like the example, I mean, they don't have the select one, but they have select where.
We'll come to the example, but concept-wise.
But those are not native. You have to write the function.
Yeah.
We have to write them. That's what we are creating a library. That's all ORM is. ORM is basically a library which has a bunch of functions.
Okay.
But today we are going to create the library, right? Next week, next class, we will see somebody else who has built a library, how to use that. But today we are going to write the library to see what actually is going behind the scene. It's not as complicated. Why? I'm just,
That makes sense.
it's my whole same SQL query. I'm just putting it inside a function. That's all I'm doing. Okay, the exact same code that we saw, we had our select star from author, blah blah blah, select star from author where ID is equal to this. I'm putting all this code in these functions, right? And I'm calling these functions. Instead of writing the whole query, I'm just calling these functions. Okay? Yes.
This is so you don't ever have to expose your database tables.
I don't have to. Well, you don't have to really expose your queries. You kind of make it simpler. You are saying, and then it's reusable. Why? I can take the same library and put it in my next activity and start using it. Right? I don't have to keep writing these select queries. I just copy the whole config file. I copy this ORM, right? And I paste it in a nice folder in my other project. What I do is I start calling the same method.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing changes. Absolutely nothing changes. Right? Again, these are empty. We still have to pass in some parameters, and I'll go through them. But that's the basic concept of ORM. You will see some complicated definitions and all that stuff, but basically, ORM, it's a mapper. You see why is it called a mapper? Because it's taking this function and it's kind of mapping to your SQL query that's kind of hidden from you or hidden from the user. One of you can create this whole ORM, distribute to the whole class, and nobody cares. Everybody can just keep calling these functions, and they do what is required. When I call this method, it should give me all the rows. Okay, that's what's going to, if I call this method, it's going to give me all the rows where some condition applies. Okay, so that's what ORM is. ORM is basically a library which you create and you kind of hide your SQL queries within it. Okay, but today we are going to write this query. We are going to write these functions once, and then we can, kind of keep using it elsewhere. Okay? Any questions? Everybody kind of get the concept what ORM basically is? It's not super complicated or anything. It's just a library that kind of have functions in it. That's all it is. Behind the functions, it still has the same queries. But all of this is kind of isolated from you. All you have to do is call these functions, and it does all the work for you. You can reuse it. Instead of like I wrote the whole thing again and again, if I had this ORM file, I could just call this method, done. Call this method, done. Call this method, done. Same, you can create an update one. You can create a delete, whatever you want. You can create all those methods. You can even create a method that joins two tables and gives you data back. Right? Any kind of function. It's just the same query. You are just putting it into a function. That's all I'm doing. We'll look at some of the function, how do we create them. But from the concept wise, this is what ORM is. All right? Now, let's look at the simple one, the select one. If I want to, what's my query if I create a select function, and what's going to be my query? My query is going to be select star from a table name, right? That's my query. If I want to make it reusable, I want that this function works with any program. What do I have to do? I can pass in, I can say, hey, pass the table name. Okay? Let's suppose I'm working with the quotes table right now. So what would I say? I would say select and pass in quotes. It will call this query, give me data back. Let's suppose I'm working with my pets database now. What do I have to do? Select and just pass in pets, right? Let's suppose I'm working with my ice cream database now. What do I have to do? Select, just pass in ice cream, right? I'm not writing this query again. I don't worry about what's going on. This function just says, give me the table name and I'll do the rest. And it does it for me. Okay? I can copy this ORM file, put it in another project, start using the same way. I don't have to modify this code ever. Okay, once I have my select query figured out, it's always going to be the same, and it's dynamic. Why? You put the table name, and we'll see how, but your table name is going to come over here. It's going to work exactly how it is. Right. It's good if you are understanding this. But 2 weeks ago, if I told ORM, and you won't get it. Again, that's what I know. People get to a point and they're like, "Hey, I should have known this before." Yeah, you wouldn't have understood that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I like
But that's always a good. When I hear that, okay, so this means that you guys are actually getting something.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to create one and show you what happens. Remember so this one doesn't use any express. We'll start with the SQL and then we'll go into the express part. So let's go ahead and use our same quotes database so I don't have to create a new one. Or you know what, let me copy this. We'll create a new one so that I can show you that we can use both databases. So in your example, there's already a schema. Looks like it's a pet database and a buyers. Okay, 2 tables. So I'm going to go ahead and create those 2 really quickly. And then, okay, this is good. And then let's look at our seeds. Pets. Okay, so let me do use. What is it called? I don't see it. What is it? Oh, but there's the buyers. Now I'm looking for the table. Oh, it should be there. Okay. So pets underscore db. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this. All right. Everybody understand the schema? I'm creating 2 tables, buyers and pets. All right. And then I already have a quotes database also. Okay. And then let's go ahead and create a server.js and we'll come back and see what do we do. Okay. I don't need this, don't need this. And this goes inside here. Okay, so this is my example db and my server.js. Okay, let me go ahead and copy my package.json because it has all the installation, so I don't have to worry about. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's actually empty. So okay, no mind. I need to install MySQL. Okay. All right. This is the important part. So I'm going to create a folder called config, and then this is going to have my ORM files. Right? Before that, I'm going to create a. Remember our connection, it was getting bigger and bigger. I'm going to separate my connections from my server.js so I can reuse it. Remember on Saturday or Thursday I was saying somebody can come up with a connection.js file, keep it separate and just keep reusing it so I don't have to write the same code. So that's what I'm going to do this. I'm going to paste my connection code over here and I'm going to do a module.export so I can use it elsewhere. Okay? So this is easy. We can go back and copy it from one of the previous exercises. Just change the let me make it let change my password and then let MySQL require MySQL. Okay. I just copied this connection from the previous exercise. You can look at it. Same thing. There's no change over here. The only thing I'm going to add, I'm going to export this so that I can use it elsewhere too. Module.exports is equal to connection. Okay. Everybody good? I separated my connection out and put it in a separate file. Again, now from here on, you can just keep copying this connection in the other activities. Just update your database. Okay. All right. Let's go to our. Should I look at? Um, let's create our ORM file first. All right. So within the same folder, I'm going to create orm.js. Okay, and we'll export some of this stuff from here. All right. So what did I say? ORM is just a set of functions which has all the queries in it. Okay. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create an object ORM. And why am I creating this object? So that I can export this whole object out, right? And this object is going to have a bunch of functions that I mentioned. If I don't do an object and I create all those functions, I have to export all those functions, right? In this way, I just create one object and it will export all the functions that are inside that, right? That's the reason I'm using an object over here. Okay, so an object can have properties and functions. So let's go ahead and create our select function first, and then the function like this. Okay, so now if I want to call my select function from outside, what do? I say or require ORM and then ORM dot select. It should call this function. Now we'll see how do I call this function. But I'm just creating a function inside this object. Okay. What do I need? I need my connection, right? Because I need to do a connection.query. How do I add connection here? It's in my connection file. Okay, so I do var let connection is equal to require, and this time I'm doing from my local, so it should be, is it on the same path? Yeah, so it should be connect, oops, dot slash connection. There it is. Okay, so I'm importing my connection because this is where it builds all the connection, and I need this object to kind of use it in my query, right? Why? Because this is what you do, right? Connection.query, and then you write your select query. Okay, so I need that object and I create it in a different file. That's why I'm importing this over here. Again, same thing that we have done in the previous exercise. Query string, and then this will be your function with error and results. Error and results. Okay. Now, what is my select query? It's select star from table name, right? For example, pets. Okay, but I cannot use pets anymore because I want to make it generic. I want to use it for any table. Okay. Now, for values, remember we were using one question mark, right? It's a placeholder. Every time you have to give a table name or a column name. In MySQL, you must have seen in the documentation they use double question marks, right? Double question mark is reserved for table or a column name. Single question mark is for values, whatever you're passing in. If you put double question mark, this means you have to supply a table name over here. Single question mark is not going to work. Single question mark is only for values. Okay, everybody clear on that? Table name or column. Right now we don't have a column, so we won't have to worry about it. But we are passing in this thing, double quote, double question mark, which means it's going to be a table name. So select star from some table. Right? Now, how do I get this table? How do I get this table name? Excellent. I'm going to pass it in the function, and then I'm going to pass this extremely important questions. Does everybody clearly understand what I just did, what Andrea is saying? I need a table name, I need it to be dynamic so I can use it for any possible table, right? Remember, how do we create functions? That's the reason we are creating functions, so that we can reuse them, right? And if I need a table name, I'm going to ask whoever uses this library, ORM, I'm going to ask them, hey, if you're calling my select function, give me the table name that you need me to go and run that query against. Okay? Questions? Everybody good? Okay. And then everything else is the same. If there's any error, throw that error. If error, um, let's do throw error. This will actually output the error. I'll just do a console error. Console dot error, and then just do a return. If this is successful, log results. Okay, for now we'll just log the, because if this is successful, it's going to come and log this. Okay, let's put this up so you guys can see this. Right, so I created my ORM object. I put in a function called select, and then I'm going to call this from my server. And how do I call this? What's the first thing I need to do? I need to create an import for this one, right? So let ORM is equal to require dot slash ORM. It's on the same, it's on one level up. So slash config slash ORM. Okay, now I have my object ORM, and how do I use this now? ORM, oops, not orientation, sorry. ORM dot, and you will see the method pop up over here. Select name, select. What do I need to pass in? A table name. Let's pass in the table name that we just created. What was it? Buyer? Buyers or buyer? Let's look at the schema real quick, make sure. Buyers? Okay. All right. So this should go ahead and console log my buyers for me. Oops. Okay. npm npm install MySQL. Okay, so you see I got my buyers. Now if I want to also get my other table, which is pets, right? I want to run a select query against pets. What do I need to do? I just do pets. And I get my pets there also. Okay, you guys see how simple it is? Now you just have to pass in the table name. Everything is already set up. You don't have to change. If there's a third table, what do I have to do? ORM.select table name. And it's always going to call this, it's going to replace, going to table name, and it's going to replace with this, get the results and show you those results. Okay, remember our quotes database? So if I want to go to my quotes database, I just need to go here, update quotes DB, and then call the quotes table over here. Okay, and I can reuse this in any other activity also. I don't have to keep worrying about writing this select query again anymore, because this is already there. I just can use it. Now let's suppose I want to do the where one, like select star from pets where something is equal to something. Okay, same process. You'll create a new function, call it select where. Okay, function, and we'll have to pass in something. And what do we have to pass in? It will be connection dot query. And how does my connection query goes? Error results is going to be select star from table name. So double. Okay, excellent. Where column name. So column name again. What do I need to use? Double question marks, right? Where column name is equal to. Oh, that's 3. Where column name is equal to some value. So single quotes. See, exact same query. This time I'm putting double question marks because I'm going to pass these in over here, right? Same thing. So I need to pass table name, and then I need to pass in a column name as well. Column name, and then what's the third thing? Column name. Then I have to pass in the value of column, right? So if I say select star from pets where pet is equal to some value. Okay, let's copy the error and log these results because this is going to remain exactly the same. Oh no. This thing. Okay. Alright, now how do I use this method now? ORM dot select where. Pass in the table name. Let's look at the buyers. So let's pass in buyers. Somebody tell me the column and some values. Oh, it's at the bottom. Thank you. Kevon. What is it? I am missing the array of parameters. Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. So I'm missing, how do I pass these in? So table name, column name. I'm typing it for you guys so that you guys can see what's going on. All right, thank you, Kyle. And so buyers, and then I need to pass in a column name. Looks like buyer name. I can pass in buyer underscore name, and then I can pass in the value. Okay, and this should get me exactly one value. Okay. So here's the question. Select star from buyers where buyer underscore name is equal to Kevin. What is it?
Oh, yeah,
Excellent. Select. You guys can see I don't type a lot of code in my job. I just copy paste a lot of stuff. All right. So here we go. So we got the last one. Okay. Again, now if I want to change this to the second table, what do I have to do? Just call the same one, select where, and then pass in the table name, which is pets. Okay, give me some, what's the column? Animal breed. Let's try animal underscore breed, and then pass in the wool. Okay. All right, so it gives me the last one. Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
So the ORM
Yeah, exactly. You can call it anything you want. You can call it mat.js and then yeah, it doesn't matter. But from the concept wise, this is an ORM. That's why we are calling it ORM. Now, can you write complex queries, order by? You can do everything over here. It's the same. There's no difference on the ORM.js files. You guys see that? You can write order by. So you can just select star from this order by and put the column name and compute this query. And then you can create a function saying select order by, okay, or select an order. If you're trying to join two tables, you can write the join query, run the join query in your workbench, make sure it is working, and then paste it over here. Take out whatever the names are and just replace it with either double question marks, or if it's a value, with single question mark. Okay. Everybody get the concept? What happened? How do we differentiate? Again, folder structure important. I have all my config. I create a config folder connection. It just has my connection, so you can just keep copy pasting this connection. The next activity and the next activity, just replace your database and your just the database. You can actually even go further and pass in your database also, but I'll leave that to you guys. You can pass in values in your module.exports also. So I won't go there, but again, this is, even if you guys do this is pretty good. Okay, any questions? Everybody get the concept what ORM basically is? Yes, ma'am. Not npm init. What does npm init do? Creates a package.json.
Right. But doesn't that get all of, so now you can go to the install.
Yes. No. When you create your npm init and then you install anything, then it goes and puts it inside it. And the package.json should exist before you do anything. Then it will go and insert your. Okay. All right. Any questions related to ORM? Okay. All right. We'll take a break. At 8 o'clock, we'll start exercise number 13, which is party database. And you guys are going to create the ORM, run all those queries. I think requires 3 queries. The first 2 are easy. The third one is kind of complicated, and we'll go through that one. Okay? Let's take a break, and then we'll start back at 8.
Stupid ass questions. Those were pretty good though. I mean, they're like related to me in my life. I mean, that's kind of why I chose. I was just like relatable to me first, but mine's like all one basically. Because I really, this one's my favorite one. Yeah, I need to, just, yeah, no, it's I've been using to run my server real quick.
Are we going to be doing the party?
I tried that one. But now that makes more sense. I didn't really understand the relationship. I kind of got it. But, I mean, I was working it, but then just I started trying to apply.
Okay.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's just
Once you understand ORM, start using it. It's really hard to go back. I did a whole project just using in Java, just using ORM. And on my team, I refused. The developers were like, "Well, this is easy. I can just write my select queries." I was like, "No, let's use ORM. You don't have to write anything. It's a little bit tricky because people are not used to this. It's this one. Trust me, people think this is easier. Oh, I can write all these queries. I can see it's easier for people if you're used to writing queries. This thing kind of makes it a bit difficult. This is still simple. Remember, if there are more than one table, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables, and ORM libraries kind of do it very well, but you need to understand how to use it. And that's where people are like, well, how do I use two tables, and then how do I connect them and make those joins? Kind of gets complicated. But if once you know it, it's really, really helpful.
I saw like they had an example, the one with like joining stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that one was
Well, yeah, but the problem you have to write this code, I get it. The ORM code, yes, you have to write it one time, but somebody cracks it out, and then if somebody completes this, then nobody else has to do anything. And that's where the libraries come in. Somebody has done it for you. But for now, we will have to do it. But there are some good libraries. We will see in the next one. One is called Sequelize. That's what we'll be using. They do this all ORM. You will never have to write a single query. I hate writing queries.
I mean, yeah, if they take the time, if you have to do it manually, it would help. But like you said, some people are just like, I'd rather just write functions and move on and not think about it.
Right.
You have the functions, who cares? It works.
Yeah. I'm the lazy guy who doesn't want to do all this.
You're thinking in the future, though.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to write all this. I hate queries. Yes. Yes. You have a question?
Oh, yeah, I have a question about after those both arrays are based on multiples or
Multiple?
like the main difference between like what's the main difference between those two scores? Like
Select and select where?
with those arrays.
So select where is giving you a where is a condition where you are saying, hey, select from buyer's table where buyer underscore name is equal to Kevin. That's what you're selecting. So you are trying to select star from table name gives you all the rows, but you don't want all the rows. How do you restrict to a specific record? Okay. Specific rows. So it says select from this table, but only this particular row. So that's how not all rows.
Just show two songs combined like
Right, exactly. That's where the weird part.
Okay. So okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's actually very and this is kind of what I
Okay.
help on.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
so I had
So I think towards the end is just the homework and the checkpoint. Don't really have to worry about the checkpoint, but you can look at the homework. Okay. Sounds good.
I'm still waiting for.
We're still waiting. They haven't called in.
Actually, I ran into my interviewer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he was in my Neo class.
Oh yeah. I remember you were telling.
Yeah. And
What did he say?
so he walked up to me. He goes, "Hey, have you got the email yet?" Like he was super excited. And I was like, "No, I haven't got it. I haven't got it." And that's his body that has changed. Like he's holding it a secret. And like that's how I read the body language. And he goes, "Oh, just be patient. Just to let you know, I can't give you the like if you gotta accept it or not, but just let you know, me and the other interviewer, we gave you the green light. We gave really good feedback to the hiring manager."
Okay.
And I was like, "Awesome."
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he goes, "Hang in there. They take their time."
Okay.
But I feel like he knows the result. I feel
Right.
like I got it.
When does the program start? July.
I think either July or June. I have no
Okay.
idea. But like I was telling one of the IT directors, like he's asking about this program, I was like, ends at the end of July, but I feel like the last 3 weeks is more on the final project. And so learning the detail, I feel like I've done with everything in like early July.
Okay. Yeah.
late June. Because I was looking at the schedule, that's kind of what it seemed like.
Okay.
Is that how it's going to be? Like,
This program?
yeah, this program. So I was
Yeah,
telling,
it
like,
ends on last 2-3 weeks is more like last 2 weeks is definitely all projects.
Yeah.
So So that's okay.
This program, this actually program ends on my birthday.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the presentation day. So
Which is July 30th, right?
yeah, July 30th or 31st. I can't remember.
Yeah, my birthday's July 29th.
Oh really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
turned 24, so I'm excited.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good gift.
Right. Oh yeah. So yeah, last 2 weeks are just project weeks, and then prior to that is kind of like the revision and more or less
Reviewing everything, connecting everything together.
Yeah, you'll be fine. When does the other? I meant the USA program. When does that start?
I think that starts, I want to say like June or July. I have no idea.
Oh, you have no
They
idea,
haven't
okay.
given me any details. They're just,
Okay.
I don't even know. When I asked them, like, when does it start, what is it entitled, they said, well, most of it said, we don't know what's going on.
Okay.
They just said it's like a rotational program I'm working on.
Okay.
It's called, was it 4 months front end and another 4 months back end.
Okay.
And then they're gonna put me on like a certain team, so either like Fast G or Enterprise, or
Yeah.
maybe your team.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
To be honest, I want to be on Fast G
Okay.
because that's where I am right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I work on the front line.
Look at I hate that they are not giving you the pay. They're keeping you the same pay for the IT one.
It's not bad. It's $23 an hour.
How much?
23.
Okay. But still, IT people get paid a lot more. Than that.
So I do more work.
Even the new grads or whatever the college hires they're hiring.
Yeah. Well, it's an internship program. It's rotational.
But okay. Well, I guess once you complete that program, maybe once you get permanent, they will.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm hoping. Well, I still live at home.
Yeah.
Save my money, absolutely.
Right. No, that's not the point. The point is because you are going into the job and somebody else, if they are putting a college hire, are they paying the same amount as you are? Because both should be at the same level. That's how I feel. Anyway, we'll see when that comes. Yeah, definitely.
Because after 9 months, let's say I don't like it,
Oh yeah.
I can go to a different company. And
Yeah,
have
of course.
the
Yeah,
experience.
I would say please keep that option open. Don't be like, oh, you don't owe anything to anybody, right?
Yeah.
We did this program. You're good at programming, then please, I would say try to find a job in this one. Okay?
Because I've been networking outside of USA. I've been networking at American Express. Yeah, like when the project manager
Oh, yeah.
used to coach the kid in jiu-jitsu. I should coach the kid in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just if it doesn't work out over here, go somewhere, but find a job in software engineering. Because you spend so much time, money in it, why not?
So much money and time. And to be honest, I like it a lot.
Okay.
I've been actually like looking at like the USA website and like
Okay.
just looking how it's like
How everything is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything's done.
Well, let me know how it goes.
I will. I'll send you straight out. Yeah. Oh, actually,
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably forward you the email.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
So does the app run when you do like roll calls? So you need to get out because some auto before you push it. Otherwise, it's just not working out. It's just not working. There's no like auto. There's no yeah. Oh, I guess that would be together. Dang it. Those are your friends? Yes. Oh, you went to have friends. Great. That's my least favorite part of this assignment. Wait. Yeah, I can this. Yes. Yeah. I thought it recommended Probably questions. It's like have 10 questions. Yeah, I just am getting like the link, the URL to the photo, so I don't have to actually download the photo. They just done more, right? It's more experience now, right? Like, they probably have like under specialists in different areas. So when you right click on it, right click, you have to be authorized. I need to like refresher. It's awful. This is my experience. So maybe you don't need to have 3, 4, 5.
Now that it's there,
You'll have to do like the git commit, so you need to get push and then git push group. Because now you've got the group set up and then.
But she would be able to copy out.
Yeah, so that's the.
All right, so we are starting on the party database exercise. Nick has slacked out the example that I did. It's a very similar. It's all the same structure. A little bit code might be different, but it's the same concept. All right, the ORM example. Take a look at that and then complete the party database exercise. So these are the instructions, and I think it has 2 SQL files in it. Yes. Yes. Okay. If you go in your terminal, you type in Heroku open. It will open up your link there. Just do Heroku open.
What's the cup for your homework?
Oh,
Open
See the open app button? Click on it.
Okay, so that way.
See, these guys know more about the homework.
You're like, go to yourself.
All right, so party database, very similar. So in the unsolved one, you will see you already have the SQL file, so you don't have to worry about writing those database queries. Copy them, paste it on your MySQL workbench. It should create your database, and it should create your rows also. Okay. So that should speed up things. The only thing is you'll have to write the Node.js code and not worry about your database part. Again, if the plugin works from my Visual Studio, it's fine. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Please just copy it, paste it on your workbench, run those queries, and get your database up and running. Okay? Create a config folder, connection, orm.js, put your connection code in connection.js, and then create the functions in your orm.js, and in your server, call those functions. Number 13, yes. For the last query, you have to use your left join. It's a pretty straightforward left join. You don't have any complicated where clauses in that, but you still need to recognize or recall the join query. How does the join works?
That is true.
Yes.
So my database setup. So these. These DB. And I have my seeds set up here. That's good. Right, so now I can literally copy the example that I completed. I can copy my config folder, right? This remains the same, just a database changes, so that's easy. Do parties DB, right? And then in my ORM, I do need my select and select where, so I don't need to change anything. It should work. It's easy. And then I just write my server.js file. Let's take a look at our ORM. Okay. So console log all party names. Yes.
So you need to serve that JS file even if we're not using Express or Configure?
Server.js. How would you run your node program then? How do you what file do you run?
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be called server. You can call it anything you want. Just the main file. You can call it main.js. Whatever makes more sense to you. You don't have to call it server.js. Just a file where I can call these ORM methods. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. So let's do before we start this, do a let ORM require request animation frame require dot slash config slash ORM okay. So you see how easy the setup was for me because I wrote my code in the previous activity. I just copy pasted, no change in orm.js, and in the connection I just updated my database name. And if the setup is correct, I should be able to run all of these. So it says console log all the party names. Let's look at the schema. So I have clients and parties. So this is a table I'm looking for parties. And then I want to log all party names. Okay. So party underscore name. So this is my table name. This is my column name. Okay. So I can call my orm dot select. Need to pass in the table name, which is parties, and then my column name, which is party underscore name. That's it, and that's my select query. It should give me all the values for this one. See how simple it becomes. If you just have to write it once, but after that it's pretty simple to use. Even the second one, console log all client names, orm.select, table name, clients, okay, and then column name is client underscore name. That's it, and that should do. That should give me all the clients with this client name. Let's go ahead and test the first two. I need to install npm install MySQL. Yes, John. And then I can output this and it shows it. No, thank you. Could be node. And it gives me all the data back. Okay, so the first two were really easy for me because I already wrote my select. The second one, the third one is also easy because it uses where. Console log all the parties that have a party type as grown up. So this means select from parties where party type is equal to grown up. And I already have my where one also run. So I have to say orm dot select where. So the first thing is my table name, which is parties. Okay, the second is says column name, select all, what was it, all log all the parties that have a party type is grown up. Okay, so I'm looking for column party type. Okay, and then just the value of that column. What am I looking for? Grown dash up. Simple. I don't have to worry about writing those queries again, and this should give me okay, it gives me the last one where party type is grown up. So basically two records that have grown up over there. Okay, see how simple it has become. You do have to write the library first, but I wrote in the first exercise. Now I don't have to worry about rewriting it. I just copy pasted, copied over the same file, and I can keep using this in any activity I want. Okay, the last one is saying console log all the clients and their parties. Any idea? So we are using two tables. So that should give you an idea. If you're using two tables, you need to do a join. And then console log all clients and their parties. So what am I trying to do? I'm going to log all the clients and their corresponding parties. Okay. If a party doesn't exist, am I still logging the client? It says console log all the clients.
Oh, yeah.
So even the party doesn't exist, I'm still going to log the client. Okay, so which kind of a join am I using? Left join. For this, I better to open MySQL Workbench and write my query first and then copy paste there. So parties database. Okay. Let's see. Select and then what do I want to select? Let's say client name and party name. Okay, so select client underscore name and party underscore name. Okay. From clients left join parties. From let's make sure clients and parties. So clients left join parties. Okay, and the last thing I need is something that is common in both the tables. Is the ID? What is it exactly called? ID and ID? What is it? Client underscore ID. And then what's it called on the party? Oh, it's just ID in the client, and then what's in the parties? Parties underscore ID?
No, there's just an ID in both of them. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
ID and ID?
No, if you look at the table, you'll see
ID and ID.
different.
Oh yeah, this ID, this is what we are trying to match. ID over here and then the client ID over here.
But isn't there ID and ID?
Right, but do they match? They don't match. Because parties will have its own ID, but I'm trying to find the ID for this one. So the ID over here matches the client ID over here. No, remember, go back 2 weeks ago. Oh my god. All right.
No, the ID isn't that regular previous like I get that, but that calls that ID.
Right. These are, all right, hold on. These are the ID. All right, hold on. The ID is for this table and this ID is for this table. I get that. Okay. But we are trying to combine these two tables and trying to match something that is common. Sometimes this client ID, what does this match? It matches exactly this one. You see why? It says client ID over here. So clients are going to have some parties. How do you find out which party belongs to which client? There should be a client ID in your parties table so that you can find out which client does this party record belongs to. If you have ID 5 over here and there is a party with an client ID of 5, this means this party belongs to that client.
And
That's
set up with the last line for the
right. But don't worry about this. Is more advanced. But that is what it is saying. It is saying that this ID, this line is saying this ID exists somewhere else, which is on this table. But even if you don't do this, if you have this client ID, this is the ID that belongs from here. Why? Because I have to relate these two tables, right? Remember the join? How do I relate these two tables?
So we're talking about the actual value, not necessarily the header of the column.
Header.
or name.
So this is the name of the column.
Yeah, that's the name of the column, but the thing that matches is the value.
It's a value,
itself.
yes. We are calling it client ID so that we can clearly understand that this ID is coming from a table called client and
So client ID is referencing a value that is
yes,
from.
exactly. And why? Because how do I find out which client does this party belong to? This is my connection over here.
But
Yes.
that client ID in the parties table is manually entered by the user when
Yes.
when the value is put in.
Right.
They would manually match that up, the auto incrementing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And in the line number 22, this is making sure if you enter a wrong one, it's going to error out and say, hey, this ID doesn't exist anywhere. That's all this is doing. But don't worry about line number 22, but worry about the concept. That is, remember when you did joins in MySQL, that's how you relate two tables. Right? This is the only way you can relate two tables. Everybody understand that or no? Good. So as Matt was saying, we have to match ID with client underscore ID. Now I lost it. Where was it? Oh, oh no. Yeah, it's in my MySQL. That's what I'm trying to run. So it's going to be ID and client underscore ID. CLIENT. Okay. Spell that right. Client underscore ID. Okay, so it's ambiguous. It doesn't know which ID am I referring to. You see the reason? So this ID is also it has the same name. It means something different over here, and it means something different over here. Right, and that's why you are getting an error that it doesn't know. It's ambiguous. So I need to mention exactly which ID am I referring to. So over here I can say this is my client table ID. Okay, and this is my parties table.id. Clients, yes. Okay, so now I mentioned, hey, this ID, the first one exists in my clients table and the second one is in my parties one. So that should resolve the ambiguity, hopefully. Yeah. Okay, and you see, then I get my rows back. Now you can copy this over, change the names, and then create a function and then pass it in. Okay, so you're going to create a function with these two names and then pass in your table names. So you will concatenate table name plus dot and your column names that you're passing in, and that should be, you should be able to create your join query. Okay, questions? All right, let's move on. Give this a try again. Make a copy of this query. Keep that in mind. This is the one that is running, and see how you can translate this into a string with question marks and values. Okay, give this a try on your own later on, and then I will post a solution. You can look at it how it is done. All right, let's look at the next one. Oh, this is a good one. All right. So the next exercise is for you guys. Take a look at that. That is number 15. Oh no, number 14. Number 14. Okay. In this one, you don't have to write any code yet. You have to run it and figure out why this is not working. There are only like two things. If it's not scope, what's the other one? And it's the other one. Huh? No, there's no syntax error. No. Yeah, either the async or scope. So that's the easy one. All right, take a look at this and find out why am I getting null. So for this, let's go ahead and open up ORM. Looks like the same where clause, and I'm returning the result here correctly. I'm running my query, I get my result, and I'm returning something. Okay, so I should be able to capture data, but why do I get a data is undefined? So let's go ahead and okay, what am I saying? Access denied. Undefined. Why do I get undefined? Huh? I need to what? Connect it? It didn't even connect. Why is that? Because my connection is being done on line number 1, right? At this point, I should have the connection because if I go in my orm.js, I'm already making a connection. In the previous one, this was fine. So I am making the connection over here, and then I come over here. I run my select query. It should get the data, but it says undefined. That's a good observation that I see undefined first, and then I see my connection later on. So what's the issue? It is trying to log the data before it has it. How is that possible? What is it? Where? Dependencies are. Move what? What? Do I need to move console data above? But then this is the point I'm getting there, right? So if you look at your select where, I am returning, I run my query, I get results, right? Function error result, and in that case, I am returning the result, whatever I get back, right? When I do a return, I should have something in my data. No, you're right the first time. Huh? Yeah, it's the same parties database. It's the same parties database. It's not. It's the parties that we just created before. So it exists. The database is there. Yes. Exactly. You guys see what the problem? This is a async call, connection.query. How is it an async call? You see this function, this thing, a callback function. This means this is not going to wait for anything. It's going to go ahead and it's going to come back whenever it comes back, and then it's going to execute this.
So it has a result before it even
It has a,
knows anything.
right. So if you do a return, what is happening? So I go over here, I run my connection.query. Connection.query is an async method. It doesn't wait, it doesn't block. It's going to go over here, it's going to call this and wait for however many time it takes to go connect to the database, get all the rows, and come back. It's an async operation. It's going to come and it's going to execute the next line, which is console log data. At this point, I do not have data. Why? Again, because your select where is this thing, connection.query is an async call. It does not wait for this line to come back, line number 9. When is line number 9 going to get executed? When I get my result back. Inside over here? Yeah, that would work, but that's not the point. I want to get data back over here. Yeah, okay. In your practical, in your practical application, would you just console log and say, "Hey, look up Chrome console and see the data is there"? Right? How would you show it on the screen? You need to return something, and then how do you send it to Express? So that's the solution part. But does everybody understand why this will not work? Because this is an async call. Connection.query will return whenever it returns. We don't know what happens, so it's not going to stop over here. As soon as you call this method, it's going to go ahead. One thread is fired, it's going to do its thing, and it's not going to wait for this. And the next line comes over here, console logs data, and by this time maybe the connection comes back, and then you have data at some point. Okay, do you see the issue? So this is wrong. You cannot do a return result over here. So what is the solution for this? How do we solve every async problem? What is it? Did somebody say wait? Who said wait? Please don't do that. Don't do that. There's a better way to do it. How do we solve this? How do we solve every async problem? Callback. Right? Okay, both of you said it. Alright. So we solve all async issues with adding a callback function. Alright, even you see connection.query. This is an async method. They are adding a callback function over here. Okay, but where is the callback missing? It's missing from our function. We don't have a callback function. Connection.query, they know that this is an async function. They have added a callback function over here. So this is good. But where are we missing? We are creating a wrapper on top of this async function, but we don't have any callback function defined over here. Okay, so basically our select where is also a async call, but it doesn't have a callback function like connection.query. So we need to add a callback function to any async method. Anything that is async, the solution is add a CB, callback function. Again, connection.query is a callback is a async method, right? You see the callback function over there? Yes, function error result. This is the callback function. They have defined it. Select where, we created a wrapper on top of it. Does our select where have a callback function? It doesn't. Right? It has table input, column to search, val of column, but it doesn't have a callback function. Okay? Take a few minutes and see how would you add a callback function here. What do I do to change my select where? Well, now I know the solution. I have to add a callback function. Now, but what does it mean, add a callback function? Look at connection.query, how they are doing it. Well, that is a calling part, but you need to create a function, define a function with a parameter, which should have a callback function at the end. Any idea how would change, Matt?
Could we just put the same kind of function, error, comma, result, as another directly added thing?
What do I do? Function?
Function, and error, result.
Okay, so I am defining a callback function. This thing is connection.query. What am I doing? I'm calling or am I defining? I'm calling a method. So when you're calling the method, that's how you do it. Over here, I'm defining my function. So definition in the function, I cannot do it. I have to define my callback function. All right? That's it? CB, callback. You can call it anything you want. That's not it, but how do we pass anything? JavaScript doesn't care if it's a string, if it's a number, if it's a function or anything. You just add a parameter, call it callback or whatever you want. Let's call it callback function. Okay? So basically I'm saying, hey, if you want to use my select where, you have to pass in a callback function. This is the definition. Again, connection.query, we are calling that function. That's why you define this function. But if you look at the definition of connection.query, you will see it has one parameter, two, and the third one, it will say CB or a callback function. Okay? Now, what does this callback function do? Again, we are defining this method. We are not calling it. Where would we call this method? It's in our server.js. So that's where we'll have to fix that. But first of all, we have to define this. And instead of this, we are going to say callback function result. What did I just do? I said, hey, if you are passing in a function on line number 4, the last parameter, all right? Once this connection.query is run, when I get my results back, go ahead and call this function and pass in this result. Okay, this completes my definition. Let me show you how you would call it, and then it might make a little bit more sense versus then you can look at connection.query and see how that is working. So now I have I'm going to keep that over there. orm.select where. What do I have? The first one is my table input, column to search, value of column, and the last one is a callback function. Okay? So these first are the same, and the last one is a callback function. And how do I give callback function when I'm calling? Just like this, just like same as this. And then I can move this part inside here.
So you always have that option to put a callback function.
You always have that, and that's how you do it. Okay, again, now compare it with connection.query. In connection.query, at the end, you were passing in a function, anonymous function, right? Because we were calling that function. Over here, line number 5, we are calling the function called select where. And select where in the end is saying, hey, if you want the results, pass in a callback function. Now, guess what happens? When I call this function and I pass this in, I go over here, it says, okay, this is my input, column to search, this thing, and I'm passing a function that you're going to call when the results come back. Okay? When the results are back, it's going to call whatever function we are passing in. And what am I passing in? I'm passing in this thing.
Like you're putting, you're passing callback function into a callback.
I see what you mean.
Looks like you're naming something callback function, treating it as a function.
It is a function.
And then
Yes.
outside of it, you are just calling
Right.
it a function that does.
Right. Because why am I doing this? Because this is the way. Remember connection.query or server.listener, app.listener. What's the last? It's always going to be a callback function, right? Exactly the same thing. The only difference is we are looking what happens over here. What's the code behind this? How do people define callback function? And this is how you define a callback function. Like in your function body, you're going to expect a function. When somebody passes in, you're going to call that function whenever you are ready. Remember the definition of callback? Callback function gets fired, when the results are there. Remember the example I gave, you're working on an assignment, somebody calls you and you're like, hey, when I get there, I'm going to call you back. This is what happens. That, at some point, I'm passing a function, and at some point, you're going to call this function, right? And what is the point? In this case, my point is when I get my results back, then I want this function to be called. Okay? Please go back and review some of the callback activities that we did 3 weeks ago. Okay, or 4 weeks. I think the project one we did a callback activities. Again, it's if you go back now and see, it's the same thing. At that point, you might not have realized what callback is working, but this is the same thing that we did. Yes, Matt.
So the idea here that callback function can't run until results exist.
Exactly. It will never run until results exist. Why? Because this is being called over here, and when this function gets called, then I get the results back. Behind the scenes, if you look up query, they have the exact definition, kind of something like this. And they're saying, hey, when this comes in, if you look at the code, they are calling this function somewhere in the middle of the code. Like we are calling this function over here.
And then our call to select where from server can't finish until that callback function comes back.
Exactly.
So it just sits and waits for that.
Well, it doesn't wait. It executes the next line, which is there's no next line. So just your page doesn't stop or anything. You will do something else in
It
there.
doesn't serve that bit.
It doesn't serve that data. Yes, it's not going to serve the data, but of course you're going to have a lot of code below, and that's going to go and execute. So you have to see what you want to do. Maybe you can show some default values until the data comes back, or like a waiting, oh, getting values, what other things are loading. So something else. But this is how you would do if you want the results back in your Express app or something. Okay? Because remember we started ORM, we created a library that we can get this data back, right? In the previous exercise, we were just console logging inside our ORM. That's not very helpful. I mean, I don't want to console log anything over here because this library is kind of hidden, right? I'm going to call this function from my routes, right? When I do a slash or a slash API get something, right? Behind this, I was writing the whole query, right? This time I'm going to replace it with my ORM functions. But within my ORM functions, I want to get my results back, right? In my routes file. And this is how I'm going to get my results back. Again, if I console log over here in my ORM.js file, it doesn't serve any purpose. Data kind of stays over there. I have to get this data outside this file so I can access it somewhere else. Yes. This one?
Is your connection set up right?
Set up the same channel.
No, what's wrong over here? He's saying that if the connection is set up right. Oh, this is because of this line over here. Yeah, it doesn't work, right? This is incorrect. Line number 3. Why? Because I'm passing in only 3 parameters. I need to pass in the 4th one using my callback function. Right? So that's why. Okay? Again, I know this is confusing. Please go back, look at some callback activities. I'll push some code. There are some separate activities also. Take a look at that. But this is the way you would get your results back from your ORM.js, or you're going to expose your results back like this. Again, we cannot put our results over here. And the reason, the way to get the results back is we create a callback function just like app.listener, connection.query. We've been using callback functions, but in this case, we are defining a function, right? We are passing this in, and at some point, we want to execute this function. And what is the correct location? This is when I get my results back, then I want to go ahead and execute this function, all right? And this function exists over here, okay? It's going to execute, it's going to put data in my results, and it's going to then I'm going to use my results over here to pass it to my index.handlebars. I'm going to pass this as an array or get the first row or whatever. Okay? All right. Questions? Again, I know it is a little bit confusing. Please go back, look at it, a little bit, think about it, how this is working. Look at some of the previous activities related to callbacks. Okay, and I'll post some extra activities from.
Which one? Yeah, where? Because I was trying to see, like, which activities it was.
That's number 15, callback review. So go back. I'll push that code if it's not there. Look at those activities also. It's the solution, but look at them, how they are working. They are kind of similar to that what we did before project 1. The only thing is it adds more functions to it. Okay? Now, okay, Nick, can you Slack out the 16 MVC example? Anybody remember what MVC stands for? Model View Controller. Excellent. MVC, Model View Controller. Okay, So we have been building all this stuff to get to this point, right? I said model view controller is a design pattern that is being used. React uses it, Angular has that, a lot of other, it's not just related to front end or full stack apps. A lot of other iOS, Apple uses MVC architecture. Um, Even when you're writing your APIs in Java, they use MVC. It's just a design pattern. And that's how you divide your code. You divide your code into three parts: model, view, and controller. Okay? From the concept wise, try to understand how this works, and then you can look at the code and it might make a little bit more sense. So your view, your controller is in the middle, and there's your model. Okay? All your communication goes between uses your controller. When your view wants to talk to your model, it goes through your controller, and then controller talks to the model, and then comes back and gives the result. Now, what is view? What is controller? What is model? Model is the easiest one. Model is basically your database or data sources. Okay, this is where your SQL queries, your ORMs, and all that stuff kind of reside over here on your models. Okay, all your ORM functions and all that stuff, they kind of reside on your models. What is view? View is your handlebars, your HTML, and all that stuff. Okay. Controller is where you define all your APIs and your routes. Okay, now you see how this is going to work. From your handlebars, you're going to call an API, right? You want to get some data back, right? So from your handlebars code, you're going to go to your route. You're going to call your API, which resides in your controller. From here, there will be some select queries. We're going to be using ORM, which resides in your model. It's going to get the data back, and then it's going to send it to your view. Okay, that's how MVC architecture works. Again, your controllers will have all the definition of your APIs. All your database and ORM functions are kind of over here. And then your views will have your handlebars. Again, from your handlebars, you're going to make an AJAX call. It's going to go over here to your API, right? And your API has to run some select queries to get the data back. It's going to go and talk to the model. It's going to get the data back, and then it's going to send it to your handlebars. It's going to display that data. Okay? Any questions on the architecture?
That's the.
Yep, that's it. MVC, Model View Controller. Okay?
This is the architecture.
It's a widespread architecture. It's not limited to full stack apps or web apps. Different. It's a design pattern basically. That's how you define your components. That's how you modularize your things. Remember, right now, the pattern that we are using is just controller. It's a big server.js, and it has like everything.
It's just
right?
make it easier when you deploy.
Right. It's not easy when you deploy. It's easier to debug. It's easier to modularize and kind of find what you're trying to do. Right now, we just have 4 routes. That's why. But in your project, you will have more routes and more tables. That one file is going to grow bigger and bigger. It's kind of difficult to find out what you're trying to do. It's more error prone. This way, we can isolate where each component goes. Okay? All right, so this example number 16, if you guys downloaded that, it is basically giving you a model view controller architecture. All right, let's start with the easy ones. The first one is a config folder. We have done these exercises. It has a connection and ORM.js. Okay, same as previous one. Okay, my connection has my MySQL connection. All right, and my ORM has some of my functions over here. I have all, create, update, 3 ORM functions over here. Okay, looks like all is doing select everything. Create is doing an insert query, and update is doing an update query. All right, just by looking at the names. All right, update, set, it does all that stuff. And I'm passing a callback function because this has to get some data back. All right, Everybody good with the connection part? Config? All right. Let's look at our DB folder. It just has schema and seeds. Okay, the table definitions. So this one is easy too. We'll come back to the next one. Public, same as the first example. It has a JavaScript file. Looks like our jQuery. 2 functions, same as the first course example. Okay, that's our public folder. And then what's in our views folder? It's our layouts, our handlebar files. Okay, you see this partial folder? Take a note of this and we'll come back and see what this is. Oh, yes, those are components, just like React. All right, let's go to our models. So models is our data source, basically, right? Where controller talks to it. So let's look at our model. So what do you see over here? It's the same 3 functions that are in your ORM file. All, create, update, and the model also has the same functions. Then what's the difference between these functions? Any guesses what the all is doing? Selecting. And where is it selecting from? Like, why do I have all over here and I have all in orm.js also? Line number 2. Does this give you any hint? I'm importing orm.js over here. So this all function is basically calling that ORM function. That's all it is doing. It's a wrapper on top of a wrapper. Yeah.
Why?
Again. Right. That's
It'll show you why, but there's always a reason why you abstract things into other
exactly.
things.
Again, I know it's
It seems daunting at first.
yes, it does, but this is how you, when you're working with the production ready code or when you are using design patterns, this is how you do it. And why? Again, we are abstracting this information as Blair was saying. So my ORM has all my select queries. All right, right. In my model, I'm saying, hey, there is an ORM. There's a wrapper. Again, this ORM will be replaced with some third-party ORM also. We'll see in the next class. But ORM is kind of isolated. Think of ORM as somebody else has written this ORM code, and I'm going to use this in my code. Okay. So ORM again has all these functions with select queries and all this. I want to use those select queries, right? And where do I use those select queries? We go in my model. Now the good part about this is, let's suppose there's a new Node.js library that we are looking into, which kind of has the same effect as ORM, right? Now what do? I just replace this with my Node.js, and then this will still keep working on. Okay. Again, this is a technique to abstract or isolate our code or modularize our code as much as we can. All right. What is it? Exactly. So I can swap out with something different without actually making a lot of changes, right? Because my controller is talking to my model over here. It doesn't care about ORM, whatever. I don't care what my model is using. What I care is that this should be working. And what this is doing, this knows about ORM. It has a callback function. It gets the response back, and then it kind of sends it back to my controller. Okay? When you are working on your projects, please keep this in mind. Look at that and see how this is being defined and kind of follow the same strategy. I'm telling you, once you are working, you will see this pattern a lot, and it's kind of used in a lot of places. MVC is quite popular. Okay. Now let me complete the next part, and then we'll come back to this one. Now, what did I say? My controllers, these are going to have APIs, so this shouldn't be any different from what we are using. All right, we are defining our routes and we are defining our APIs. All right, you see number 3, line number 3, express.router. All right, So express.router is same as app.get, app.post, which we have been using, right? We are using app is equal to express, right? And then app.get, app.this, app.this, right? Router comes into play. They have introduced this in the newer versions that we are using. They solve this modularization problem, right? When you are using express.router, it creates a mini app and lets you do all this stuff without importing and settings and configurations. It's actually basically just creates a mini app where you can create your route. That's all it is doing. There's no real difference between express.router and how we are using, right? We were using app.get, app.post, app.put, right? This is the same function. What this is useful for is, you see, I created and isolated, I kept my APIs separate, right? And I'm exporting this router over here, right? This is the reason that this exists. That you can create a small modularized mini app using express.router without having any configurations and all that stuff, right? I just use express.router, and you see I directly jump to my routes, and that's it, done. That's where, if you want to modularize your app, you don't have to worry about instantiating app.express and using all that stuff and keep it separate. That's where you use express.router, right? If you read the documentation, basically it says express.router, it creates a mini app. What it means is, if you have modularized and you're taking your route separately in a separate file, it kind of creates a mini app for this and creates your route. That's all it does. Behind the scenes, it's performed similarly. App.get, app.post, app.put. The function is still the same. You won't find any difference how you're using it. Okay? Yes.
So should we be planning like on paper our routes pretty
Mhm.
so that we're not getting upside down? Because even when we had just 2 routes, I was already getting upside down. So I can't even imagine.
What do you mean upside down?
Like
Confused?
Yeah, confused.
Confused
That's not a good word.
between what? What are you getting
Like,
confused?
like what direction things should be going on, which like I see let's say for example, first pass home assignment, like when I'm trying to get my object property from my database,
Hmm?
I wanted to capture the result that I want to store the result from actual and add it as an object from the actual patient
Right.
object property. So I had to communicate that back to store it, and I
Right.
guess to call it back into my model. And that really confused me. And it probably sounds pretty confusing.
Okay.
now that I say it.
Again, the if you have a front end, right? I'm guessing you're calling from your browser. It sends some data back, and you store that data back, and then you send something back to show up on the model, right? So it's the same route that from your front end is going to go and hit your APIs, right? From your APIs, it's going to go to your database, and your database is going to return you something. I don't know, like a ID. It's going to return you an ID, and you take this ID and then send it back. Again, remember request and response. Request is coming in, and when you want to send something back, you just add it to your response object.
But if it doesn't have the response, it won't. That's when it's called.
Exactly. Got it. That's why you need the callback function. So it's never going to be the situation that you don't have the result back. If you have, then we are probably using the callback incorrectly. So if you're using callback function, async functions correctly, you should always have the result back. Okay? All right. So in my controller, I'm creating all my APIs, all my routes. Again, / the first one is my HTML route. I can tell because I don't have API embedded over there. The second two are the API routes, so they are probably returning a JSON file or a JSON data because I'm using my API, so it should return me something JSON. Right? The first one is returning me the HTML. Okay. Now this is what I was saying. Initially in the first exercise, what were we doing when we're creating a routes? We were writing a select query and all that stuff. Over here, I'm using my ORM functionality that I've created. I'm just calling a function all, and I know behind the scenes, all should be running my select star from this, which I don't care, right? And I just pass in what all is asking. It is asking, hey, just give me the data and I'll figure everything out. So kind of makes my life easy. I can just call this, pass in my data, and then behind the scenes is basically calling my query with the columns and all that stuff. Okay, this is what we are trying to get to. We are trying to isolate, we are trying to break up our code, modularize our code as much as we can. Okay. The last part is our handlebars, and this is a little bit more interesting, right? So we have seen our main dot handlebars, we have seen our index, right? Right. What is partials? All right. So as Blair was saying, partials is same concept as components. What this means is that when I'm creating a web page, I divide my web page into components or partials. Partials is a word that handlebar uses. When we get to React, you will see the same concept, but React calls it components, but it's the same thing. So I'm going to talk to this about partials. So what I mean by partial is, let's suppose this is my page, and I have a header over here. Okay, then I have a footer. Okay, let's suppose I have I have a left menu. Okay, I have some content over here, and then let's suppose I have an image over here. Okay, when we go to React or when we are in handlebars, the concept is you divide your web page in as many components or as many partials as you can. So this could be one partial, this is another partial, this is another partial, this is another partial, and this is another partial.
Just to make it easier for you?
Make it easier, yes. So you're going to take these, everything will be a separate partial or a separate component. And each one basically would be an individual HTML file. Again, it's the same thing that React does. They call it component, but they are doing the same thing. They're dividing your web page into different components or partials. That's what partial means. And what happens in the end? These partial come in and embed in your main page.
So it's the same as React has the same formula.
Same formula. They just call it components.
So it all, boom, the main is where it all resides.
Right. All of these kind of come in and kind of reside, but all of these will be separate file. For example, over here, you see they have two partials. Well, just one partial. Okay. Cat block handlebars. So this partial is, you're going to call this partial somewhere. We'll see how do we call this in handlebars. But you create a separate file, and by partial you are saying that this is my component or this is my partial that I'm going to use somewhere in my main file. Now this, interestingly, is used in your index on line number 8. Okay. Now line number 8, if you see that greater than sign, that's just the syntax. Okay. Basically what you are saying is, hey, go ahead and call this partial. We'll see what these values mean. But at line number 8, I'm basically saying, hey, there's a partial, there's a component that should go in my index.html, index.handlebars. I want to call this component cats. It should come ahead and it should go and embed itself on line number 8. Okay? And the syntax, this is what the syntax is. You put a greater than, and then you put in your partial. And this means there's a folder called cats. Okay? And then within cats, there's a handlebar files called cat block. Again, handlebars is very specific, so you need to have a folder called partials, and within the partials, you will create your different folders. Okay, let me run this file so that you can see where this cat block comes in. Let's go. Okay, it has all the dependencies, so that's nice. Oh. npm install. Let's go ahead and make sure my connection is correct. Yep, that's good. Okay. Okay, my cats database doesn't exist, so let's go ahead and run this, and then run this. So this creates my database. Now we can go ahead and run this. Still nothing. Oh, because I didn't change anything. Okay. All right. So let's look at what are my routes so that I can go to them, and they should be in my controller. So I have a slash. Okay, slash should take me there. And what's the port? 3000. So I can just refresh this. Okay. So you see this Mises, Bobby, and Owen. This data, this is actually coming from our partials. This thing over here. They have a condition that, show this if this condition is true, otherwise she'll wake up. Okay. If I click sleep time, this means that the cat woke up. Okay. So that's why it goes down. If I click wake up, kind of goes back up over here. Okay. Again, this component that you see, these things, this is a partial. It doesn't exist within the big file. It's separated out. Okay. So as I was saying, you look at your web page and you kind of create different partials or different components. All right. Now, here's my index. Okay. So within this partials, I'm calling, and it is, remember from your routes, you call your file name and then you pass in some object, some data. It's the same concept over here. Okay. When you call your partials, you can pass some values. It can be one or it can be more than one. So let's suppose what I'm saying is, hey, pass in an object called sleep and assign the value true. I can pass something else also, name, some cat name. It could be a number also. I can pass in a number. It doesn't matter. So all these variables, you can access them in your partial, which is, so this right now they're using the sleep one, right? And this is being passed over here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So you can pass in different data to your partials. Again, this is how partial works. So if I'm creating this component, I need to pass something to this component from my, let's suppose this main index.html, right? And how do I pass data? So I say greater than this thing. This is the syntax to call the partial, and then you pass in all whatever data you want to pass in. Okay, separated by a space, not a comma. Just remember that. Okay. Now, one thing I want to show you guys before ending this, you see this ID and this thing. Again, I'm going to explain this. It might not make sense right now, but please go back and look at this exercise. When you call a partial, right, it sees what context you are calling it in. So I'm looping through the cats array, right? So this means after this line, I have an object of cat. Right? This is an array. So let's go back and see where this array should be. It should be in my controller when I'm making that API call. Okay, I'm passing an array. Right? I'm passing a cats array. And this has some properties. So it takes that when you are looping through the cats array, it takes that object, and by default, even though you're not passing it in, it will pass that object within your partials. That's why you're able to access this ID, just this ID and name. This sleep object, this sleep property does not exist in your cat object. This is the one that you're passing in over here. Again, just keep a note of it. When you are doing this exercise, refer back what I'm saying. Again, this thing, when you call this partial, it automatically passes the object which is inside that array. Okay? If you want to pass in this array, you can just call this cats slash cat block. Okay? If I call this, it is going to pass the cats array by default, this thing. Why? Because this is outside over here. This is where the scope is. Yes.
When you call it partial, it automatically pulls whatever the object.
Right. Whatever is being called. So how am I calling index.h in handlebars? I'm calling it from my routes, right? I'm calling from my controller, and I'm passing in an array of cats, right? So within this handlebars, the cats object exists. Any partial that you call is going to pass in that array, unless you are in each loop and you are calling this in this context. So if I do this, this one passes an array of cats, and this one just passes one object because I'm looping through, and in this context, they're only object that exists.
Okay, so whatever object you're making,
Right. Okay. Again, I know this is a lot of stuff. Please, there's a exercise. Look at this example and then solve the next one. All right. As your homework, please, other than your regular homework, the exercise is, it's the same cats app. All right. It's the same app. The only thing is it's unsolved. It is missing some portion, but this is basically a solution for that app. All right. Again, do look into this one, what I told you about partials. All right. This is how this is done. Even React does it. It's a different syntax, but the concept is still the same. All of your components are kind of divided, right? And these are coming and embedding into a page. That's what partials is for. I'm not going to even say that any questions because I know you guys are probably confused. Okay.
Just a little bit.
Wait a minute.
All right. Here's. If you guys go back and do this exercise Thursday, if you have any questions about partial, we can go over it again. But the condition is, please look at this code. Again, I said, remember the skill that I was mentioning, that you need to understand the code that somebody else write. Again, this could be your production code when you get to a job and they will say, hey, this is our code and you need to add something else, right? So you need to understand how this code is working. Go back, look at it again, see how this is working. Thursday, come back and I can go over if you have any specific questions, like what data, how the data is going inside it, or how do I pass it, why the array is going over here, but an object is going over here. Okay, you can look at it and I can re-answer, and you can answer those questions again on Thursday. Okay, but again, the condition is, please go back, look at this code, try your best to understand, look at these concepts, the MEC concept, look at the partials and see how this is working. Okay. On Thursday, we'll start, again, ORM is not going to go away, but we are going to look at an ORM that somebody else has built. It's called Sequelize. We'll look at how to use that ORM. Okay. For now, Nick, can you go over the homework and then we'll do a checkpoint and that should be it.